friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today to talk about diets, generally speaking. It's taken me a while to get around to doing this video because initially I was going to break down all these different diets that people are on, and I decided that's just not the direction I want to go. I will touch briefly on my thoughts on certain diets, but today's going to be mostly about what works best for me. The most important thing when it comes to you as an individual is not what I do, it's not what somebody else does, it's not what some doctor or naturopath even recommends. It's about you finding what makes you feel best when it comes to any of that. Now, a lot of people have certain food sensitivities. That means that they have to definitely avoid things like gluten or dairy or maybe even grains in general. But that's for people with very specific needs. And I don't think it's something that we should blanket and say that everybody should eat that way. And I'm going to say the same thing about what I do. I'm not going to make this as any kind of blanket statement saying that this is what everyone should do, because everybody's different health conditions that they're dealing with, this isn't going to be suitable for them, or even their genetic makeup, or even their body shape or their activity levels. It's all going to vary depending on who you are. So generally speaking, yes, there's a lot of this that needs to be individualized, but one thing that we should remember is that we were all created the same way. If you take it clear back to after the fall, the way our bodies were made were to handle all these different foods, such as meats, grains, dairies, carbs, vegetables, herbs, fruits, and the sugars in the fruits, and even honey. But because of the change in the way our food is produced out there and the conventional ways that grains are being grown or fruits and vegetables are being grown, or the way the meat's being raised or the dairy's being treated, generally speaking, these are the things that are causing a wide array of issues with people's health. So it's not necessarily the dairy or the meat in itself or the grains in themselves. If we were to eat them the way they were meant to be eaten, I don't think we'd be seeing a lot of these issues. I don't think we'd be seeing a lot of gluten sensitivities, which is caused partly from the gluten and the way it's been hybridized and genetically modified over the years, but also because of the other issues such as antibiotics in the meats or antibiotics we've taken in our life that have caused gut issues to make it so that a lot of people are more sensitive to dairy or meat or grains. But my belief is, again, generally speaking, is that when we're eating these products that are in their most natural form, then we're going to see a lot fewer health issues. But we also have to realize medications, certain injections over time, that whether we were given to us as children or taking them as an adult, these are also causing issues with our guts. And that's why they believe that childhood injections can lead to autism. It's not so much of the injection causing it itself, but because of the gut issues it causes, which then causes other issues throughout the body, including autism and other things. Though, yes, it can be linked to the mercury that is still being used. Don't believe the lie that it's not being used. It's just been called something different. So anyway, let me go ahead and talk about what I've done, how I got to where I'm at, and what I have found time and time again since my teens, what has always worked best for me. So it really starts off with when I was a teenager. This is something I never told anyone because I never heard of anyone doing this, and I figured if I told anybody what I did, I would get lectured. Because you got to realize I was a teenager in the 80s, and that was when the big push for make sure you eat your breakfast every morning, it's the most important meal of the day. But I found that if I skipped breakfast in the morning, that I would feel better throughout the day and I wouldn't be as hungry for the rest of the day. I found I was less likely to want to just eat and snack all day, and especially less likely to have cravings for junk food. And so that was my start right there, and I loved the way it made me feel. And I still ate lunch and I still ate dinner, but I found that I didn't eat as big a lunches, I didn't feel the need to snack so much in between, and I didn't eat as big at dinners. And then in my early 20s was when I first decided to go vegetarian and just to see how it made me feel. It wasn't that I had any moral issues with eating meat. I figured that I wasn't eating a whole lot of meat anyway, so I thought, why not just cut meat out entirely and see how it makes me feel? And I think I cut out eggs as well, but I still had dairy. For the first 6 months, I felt pretty good, but at that last couple of months, I started having spontaneous fainting spells, or even just dizzy spells, thinking I was going to faint. And they would always happen at the most inopportune times, like out in public, and it was horribly embarrassing. Before I decided to quit being a vegetarian, I did go to the doctor and get some checkups, and oh, you're anemic. Which, yeah, is because I'm thalassemic, which means I don't need iron. But back then I didn't fully understand it. So the doctor was putting me on iron, which was the last thing I needed, which then made me more anemic. And so it wasn't actually the anemia that was causing the fainting spells. He didn't know. They just checked my blood. Oh, you're anemic, because thalassemic blood will show up as anemic without doing the actual proper blood tests. They won't know what kind of anemia it is. They don't even know what's causing it. Is it a lack of iron or too much iron? Because either one can cause you to be anemic, and so can deficiencies in other certain nutrients that we need. And I did cover this in a video about anemia that I'll link to down below if you want more information on that. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there, that had nothing to do with the fainting spells, because I was born being thalassemic, and I've been thalassemic all my life. It's not a disease. It's just genetics. It's from my Mediterranean descent, and most of my family has it on my side, including my boys. So I pretty much figured out that I think I need to have more animal products in my diet, or more meat. And so as soon as I went back to eating meat, it wasn't like I started eating tons of meat, just allowing myself to have some meat, a little fish, a little beef, a little chicken, whatever it was. Immediately the fainting spells stopped. Especially for us women, the older we get, and we have kids, and we go through this life change and that life change, and our body chemistry is always changing as to what we need, how many calories we need, or what types of things that we need. And so I was always trying different things, but I never was one, even back in my teens, that believed in giving up whole food groups. Even though I did try being a vegetarian in my 20s, I just wanted to try it out of curiosity. It wasn't that I thought I was going to lose weight, because I didn't need to lose weight. I just wanted to see how it made me feel. And, you know, in the end, it did not make me feel good. So most of the time through my life, it wasn't just about trying to find ways to keep the weight off or to lose weight like after having kids. It was also about what's going to make me feel the most healthy. And so then I think it was in my 30s, after I was done having kids, because I was 29 when I had my last child. So after my second child was born, what I found worked best for me to take off the excess, all that baby weight, was to go down to 1 meal a day. That was when I first did that. And I didn't share that information with a lot of people. I pretty much just kept it between me and Patrick, because I figured people would lecture me. But I was able to pretty much eat whatever I wanted in my little window of time that I created. And believe me, at that time, back in my early 30s, I had no idea if other people did such a thing. And I never heard of anyone doing it, that's for sure. It was just something that I thought made sense. I really believe that at least for me, that I could easily get away with eating 1 meal a day. And I did, and I just was able to take the weight off really quick and feel really good. But, you know, as things go, and it happens all the time, it's like, because I'm always making meals from scratch, I'm making breakfast from scratch a lot of the times, and sometimes something's just like, man, that smells really good, I want to try, I want to see how it turns out, especially if I'm doing experiments. Then I end up eating a breakfast or a dinner. Once I break that habit, even that one time, a lot of times it's hard to kind of get back into doing the 1 meal a day again. But through the years, I found I kept having to go back to it. Well, then in my 40s, I decided I was doing really good. I was feeling good, and I thought, well, let me go ahead just out of curiosity and try the vegetarian thing, but go deeper with it and practice even more healthy habits and go totally vegan, cutting out all animal products, and see how I feel. I'd been doing the 1 meal a day thing. I was pretty thin. At that time, I think I was wearing like size 2 jeans. For the most part, I felt really good. But when I went vegan, though I felt good for a little while, in even less time, I found myself going back and just having those dizzy spells. I never actually fainted, but then I knew I need something, and so I'd cook myself up an egg, and immediately I would feel better. Or I'd have a slice of cheese, immediately I'd feel better. But I did try to, for the most part, stick it out. I'd just like do that when I'd really start feeling like junk, and then I realized it's not working. I mean, I'm listening to my body, and this isn't for me. And I believe for me personally, it goes back to my Mediterranean descent and the thalassemia and needing the nutrients that are found, like especially in red meat, to help with the anemia. And I honestly believe that's what it was. So when I go back, way back to my 20s, it was the anemia, but it was the anemia from not eating the meats that my body needed. And then even after I started my YouTube channel, I decided to go for a week cutting all grains, all dairies, and all meat, just for a week to see how it made me feel. I was calling it a cleanse, and I felt pretty good. I decided to stretch it out for another week. By the end of that next week, I think it was, I can't remember how long I stretched it out, if it was 2 weeks or even as long as a month, but I know by the end of that period, the dizzy spells were starting to come back. So I had to bring all the food groups back into my diet. So what it comes down to is, for me personally, I have to have the healthy versions of all these foods from all food groups for me to feel my most optimum health. That includes healthy sugars like honey and maple syrup, and even organic cane sugar. That includes meats of all varieties, whether it be poultry or fish or red meats from elk, venison, and grass-fed beef. And of course, dairy. Some people complain about the whole organic thing, but what I found is the more I can stick with the organic non-GMO foods as much as I possibly can, and yes, I know it's an expense, and I know not all of it is honestly organic, because if you know what the USDA can legally label as organic, there's a lot of things that are allowed that kind of cancel out it's organic. So sometimes we just have to take a step of faith if we're really trying to heal our bodies and feel the best. And I can honestly say that when we started doing the more wild caught meats with the elk and the deer and the fish, and then when we do get beef, going for the more naturally raised beef, being grass-fed without all the antibiotics injected into them and all the steroids injected into them, we both started feeling better. And it was one of the several ways, by really kind of cleaning up, still eating the same types of foods in general, because we weren't big junk food eaters, but just cleaning up the foods that we were eating. Instead of just getting regular milk from the store, we started buying the organic milk. That was, for me, was one of the biggest sticker shocks for me, was going from the $2 a gallon milk to the $6 a gallon milk, which is now, all of that is a lot more, but that's what it was back then. But I looked at it this way: we're getting off the thyroid medications, so that's that much money right there per month we're not having to pay on medications. And then that's not that much money once a year every time we got to go back for another checkup, which they charge more every time, and insurance paid less and less of. So I figured it all kind of balanced out, and I'm looking out for our overall health. And to me, it's an investment in our health. So when people are putting their investments into medications to take care of their health, what's more expensive? To me, it was less expensive going organic than to having to keep adding more medications, because the medications we were already on were causing symptoms that would then cause more medications, because like with the thyroid, it caused a lot of joint problems. And though I never did go to the doctor for that to get medications, I'm sure there's people that do, to get medications to help with arthritis or whatever joint problems they're having, or whatever other issues being on the thyroid medication causes. Or if you're on high blood pressure medication or high cholesterol medication, these are two things that, a couple more medications that cause so many other side effects that then they put you on more medications for. And so not only does that bill keep building up, your health keeps getting worse and worse. So for me, investing in organic, even when a lot of it has to be a step of faith, because I can't, unless I'm raising it all myself, I can't be totally guaranteed that everything I'm getting is fully organic. I just sometimes have to trust. But this also is why, one of the many reasons why we started growing as much as we can. We're not doing animals other than chickens right now, but we do grow as much produce as we can on our little shy 1/3 acre piece here, that eventually at some point we may expand onto one of our other 2 pieces of property. But right now we're trying to do as much as we can in this one little small space for several reasons. One is convenience, and the other is to show people that even if you just have a little lot in the neighborhood, you can grow a lot of your own food, and then you know exactly what is going into that food to make it so that you can get the most nutrients out of that food without all the toxins caused from synthetic fertilizers and toxic pesticides. But there's natural ways that you can do this, and I'm not going to go into all that here. I have many videos about gardening, like the amendments we use in our soil and various things like that. I'll put a link to at least 1 or 2 of those down below if you're curious. At any rate, every time I find myself, you know, I kind of veer away for a while, especially around the holidays is when it's most difficult. Even though we don't celebrate the holidays, generally speaking, we do get invited to our son's house on Christmas Day for dinner, and so we go take a part of that. We do still do Thanksgiving dinner, and usually that's late afternoon, evening eating, and so that tends to throw me off for a couple months. And then once, like now, I'm able to get back into the 1 meal a day, immediately I start feeling so much better. That and making sure I'm getting a good amount of daily exercise, as well as taking a day of rest once a week. That is really important. I'm not saying you can't move and get some things done, but instead of trying to work really hard, doing the physical labor, your body needs to rest at least once a week. And when you allow it to do that, it has time to heal better. And then everything else falls together. The better you feel from a healthy diet, the more energy you will have, then the more active you can be, which then means that you're burning more calories. And the way I eat, I can eat pretty much anything I want and still lose weight and feel good. Though I do still, for the sake of my health down the road and wanting to stay off the medications, I do keep my focus on the most healthy foods that I can either grow or purchase. Like a lot of the organic produce we get from Misfits Market and have it delivered here. It was really a godsend for us. We have one big grocery store here in town, just one, and they do carry a lot of organic stuff, but they don't carry everything organic. And what they do carry comes and goes all the time. It's always changing what they have. I appreciate what they do carry, but getting organic citrus, for instance, is difficult. And the reason it's important for me to have organic citrus is I like to use all parts of the citrus. I know there's arguments on both sides, and I understand the cost. But again, you got to weigh out what's the cost of your health. How important is that to you? Are you paying a lot of money into health insurance every month? Are you paying a lot of money into medications every month? Would it be far more cost effective to just eat better? Now, I realize, you know, having some kind of health insurance for emergency things that come up, that's important. I get that. And that's why having some kind of health savings fund, or maybe even whatever kind of health share program, I think is a really good thing to look into. But if you're paying high monthly premiums just so you can have your medications paid for, is it worth it? Especially when you're still having to pay these co-pays that seem to keep getting higher and higher. Wouldn't it be cheaper to just try to go as organic as possible, even if it costs more for that organic, even if it costs twice as much for that organic food? But I think it's also important to look into the companies if you're having to buy it, or if you can get it more locally and buy directly from the people that are growing or raising those items. That's going to be the best you can do right there. Just like I used to be able to get local organic raw goat milk every week, and you know, the lady's not doing it anymore, so I had to give that up. And it's really hard finding people around this area that either have enough to sell because they're just doing enough to take care of their own family, or ones that are reliable. Even the ones that have plenty to sell aren't always reliable. And so when it comes to dairy, for the most part, I like all the milk we buy, I always go organic whole milk. And for the powdered milk, initially I wasn't stocking up on organic because I couldn't find it, an organic whole milk. I could find organic non-fat milk, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted whole milk, organic, and when I was finally able to get my hands on some, that's what I've been stocking up on. And yes, that is important to me. Some people might call it crazy, but if I'm going to stock up on a product that can be there for me down the road when I can't get fresh milk, that I want it to be something that's going to help keep me in top health, in top condition, so that I don't need the medications or I don't need to run to the doctor that may not be there for me anyway. Same thing with the medications. How do you know those medications you're currently depending on right now to keep you healthy, which really aren't keeping you healthy? How do you know that next year they're even going to be available to you? So this is the other reason why it was important for us to really look at our diet, take out the things like the Teflon, the fluoride, the aluminum, and anything else that was detrimental to our health, and meats and stuff that are been injected with antibiotics and steroids, and start focusing on more naturally raised fruits, vegetables, meats, and dairies. And when we made that change, that was one of the things, and definitely getting the fluoride out altogether, that made it so that we could go off the medication and feel better than we did when we were on it. And we were each on the thyroid medication for 15 years apiece. And if you want more information on that, I'll go ahead and link to a couple videos down below. If you're new and you haven't seen those yet, I know I keep talking about it, but there's always new people coming in, and I think it's important information. But again, understand, we're not doctors. We just share what we did to better our own health and how that just really paid off for us in the long run. So we've been off all medications for 9.5 years now, over 9.5 years, and are feeling so much better. And when I say all medications, we were only on the one prescribed medication, and that was thyroid, but we were also taking over-the-counter allergy medicines and over-the-counter pain medications for every time we had any kind of ache or pain, and we've found more natural ways to take care of that. But you have to understand, you can't just run out and find an herb that's going to cure your high blood pressure or cure your high cholesterol, which those aren't things you should be afraid of. Actually, we need cholesterol, and we need our blood pressure to go up when we need it to go up. That's important. And they're not going to be able to go grab an herb that's going to cure your hypothyroidism or your hyperthyroidism. There's herbs that you can take that will help boost your thyroid, nourish the thyroid, but it's not going to cure the problem if you're not taking care of all the other issues, like getting rid of the fluoride and just eating better, generally speaking. Whatever diet you go with, whether it be keto or vegan or paleo or whatever all these other many names there are out there, or how often you eat in the day or the hours you eat in the day, I think what it really boils down to is the quality of the food that you're feeding yourself. All that other stuff you got to tailor to yourself. I almost forgot to say, how did I get to the 1 meal a day? If you're wanting to give it a try, how I do it every time I need to get back into it, the easiest way to go about it, and it gets easier every time. If you like break away from it for a while and then you go back to it, it gets easier. Trust me, it gets easier. It's like the first time you start lifting weights and it's really, really hard, and then you might stop lifting weights for a few years, then you decide to get back into it. You think it's going to be as hard as the first time you started. No, it's not. Your muscles will respond quicker, and the same thing goes with your body. It recognizes, oh, we're doing this again, and this makes me feel good. So how I started it was, I would just put off, let's say maybe I ate at 7 o'clock every morning. Well, then I would put that off another hour and eat at 8. Then I might do that for a few days and then put it off until 9. And however long I felt I could do it, then I'd put it off until 10. And I'd keep doing that until I reached noon and I'd totally skip breakfast. And that was easy. And then I found that I could actually continue that on and go as late as 2. But that doesn't always work good for me because I'm so energetic. I have to eat at some point in the day. And most of my energy is spent from morning until early afternoon is where I spend my biggest amount of energy. So I do find, for me personally, that I actually do better if I eat it maybe sometimes as early as 11:30. And, because I've played with different times. When I wait till 2:30, by then I'm weak, I'm dizzy, and I start to get headachy. And that's not good. That tells me that, okay, that's not right. But if I eat it at like 11:30 or noon, maybe 12:30 at the very latest, and then cut my eating window to about between 2 to 4 hours is usually when I feel the best. And that's all going to depend on the day and my activity level. And then on the other end, let's say you start by skipping breakfast, but you're still eating lunch and dinner. That's totally fine. Though I do still recommend, no matter what, if you're doing 3 meals a day or not, don't eat too close before bedtime, at least a couple hours. I mean, at least have your last thing you eat be at least 2 hours before you go to bed, because it's going to be a lot better for your sleep patterns and your digestive health if you don't go immediately to bed right after eating something. I find that anytime I eat something just before bed, I never feel good, and I wake up hungry. I wake up like really hungry, like feeling like I'm famished, which if I skip dinner, I don't wake up hungry. It's kind of bizarre how that happens, but that's just the way it is. But anyway, you do the same thing. You start by shortening your eating window from the other end. So let's say you're up to where, okay, I eat at 11 or 12 or even 1, and that feels pretty good. I can eat lunch about that time and feel pretty good. Now start by cutting it from the other end. So maybe you normally eat your meal at 8 p.m. Cut it back to 7. And then cut it back to 6, and then to 5, and keep doing that until you find a comfortable zone, a comfortable eating window that works for you. Obviously, there's going to be a point where, like I say, if you cut your eating window down to an hour, which I've done done like 23-hour fasts, and you cut it down to a 1-hour eating window, and that might work for a day or two. But typically a eating window that's that short can't be sustained for a long period of time. You're going to find you're going to want to extend it out to maybe 3, 4, even 6 hours tops. So through the years, it was actually a few years ago that I found that this thing that I did since my teens is called intermittent fasting. I don't know that it was a thing back then. I don't know it was called that back then. And now it's called 1 meal a day. I would call it, in my case, more intermittent fasting, because I give myself an eating window, and then I'll kind of eat small amounts through that window rather than just sitting down and have a big meal. I find that works best for me. Maybe for one person, sitting down and having one big massive meal at once is going to work best for them. For me, no, that doesn't work. It's better for me to eat smaller amounts and stretch it through a 2 to 4 hour time period. I'm not telling everybody this is going to work for you. I'm not telling you should do it, but if you're curious about it, there's nothing wrong with trying it to see how it makes you feel. Just like there's nothing wrong trying to go gluten-free to see how that makes you feel, or going grain-free or dairy-free, or going vegan altogether. Just find what's going to help you heal your body best and where you can feel your ultimate health. I know people don't like to hear keto called a fad diet, because for some people it might not be. It might be necessary, but for some people they're doing it because they're seeing other people lose weight, so they're trying it. And I personally don't believe it's one of those diets that's sustainable for a long period of time for most people. For some people, maybe yes, but when your hair starts falling out because you're on that diet, you're missing something important that you're not getting from your food that you've cut out of your diet. So remember, we need carbs. They're very important. Jesus ate carbs. Jesus ate grains. Jesus ate meat. And dairy and honey were mentioned several times in the Old Testament, and those were consumed. But I understand if for health reasons you need to cut the dairy, or if for you as a vegan, there's no judgment on those who choose it for moral reasons. If that's why you're doing it, then kudos to you, as long as you're healthy on that diet. And what we need to do, no matter what way we're going, is never, ever, ever put somebody down or make them feel guilty because they're not following the same diet that you are. And just because I don't entirely approve of the keto diet, it does not mean that, at least for some people, that might be a good option. But just from what I've seen by watching, and I've always paid attention to this thing ever since my teens, I've watched people go on whatever the latest big diet was, and they might lose a lot of weight and seem healthy for a little while, and then bam, they're back to where they started. It's always the same pattern. Then another new diet idea comes along, and there's always doctors and people saying, oh, this is great for you, you should do this because blah 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 blah. So people get on it, they lose weight, other people see that and think, oh, it's working, and they do it, and boom. Now I know people that are on that have been doing keto for some time. They feel pretty good. They feel pretty healthy, but they're not always doing that all the time. They give themselves these breaks from it, and I think that's important. Or they're using it at least as a form to quickly take off the weight and then get control of their health before they go back into eating out of all the food groups. You know, I'm sure you understand carbs are a form of energy just like fat is, but they work in different ways. Don't forget, there was a time back in the 90s where the fat-free thing was the big thing. Everything was fat-free, but what was happening, people were craving more sugar. Well, it's fat-free, so it should be okay. So what happened? People were getting fatter. The same thing can happen the other way around. You might lose weight quicker, but then taking all those carbs out, or most of those carbs out, can then have other detriments to your health. So again, if you're losing all your hair, if your hair's falling out in big clumps while you're on a diet like that, you're seriously missing something. And it's probably biotin or some other important nutrient that you're going to find in the grains or whatever that you've cut out of your diet. So again, I'm going to come back to the thing I started this video out with. Listen to your body. Try these things. Try them and see how they make you feel. They might be what your body needs right now. But at any time when you start noticing a detriment in your health, no matter what it is, you may have to take a step back and say, okay, I need to do something different because now I'm starting to have heart issues, joint problems, my hair is falling out, I can't sleep at night, I'm having intestinal distress, I'm having fainting spells. Then you're missing something, or you're eating too much of something else, because you're making up for what you're not having here. Just like the fat-free thing, people started eating more sugar to make up for the fat they weren't getting. Whenever I'm doing anything, whether I'm taking herbal supplements or the turpentine, which I have a more updated video on that I'll be linking to down below. Obviously, things need to be done in proper moderation and proper doses for proper health. Don't forget that drinking too much water, and I'm being entirely serious, drinking too much water without getting all the proper nutrients can kill you. Eating too much kale or too many nuts or too much beans can make you feel sick or cause intestinal problems. But when we have all these things in proper balance, at least for me, when I have them all in proper balance, I make sure I'm getting a good healthy fruit, a good healthy raw vegetable every day, and some dairy or meat and grains of some sort, a good healthy grain. I feel the best when I'm getting something out of all of those, and I'm doing it all within the shorter eating window and not eating too late, not eating too early. I think that's everything I wanted to say. Hopefully, if I remember anything else I think that's important that I left out, I'll make sure to add it in text. So if you're only listening to this video, you may need to go back and watch it, just in case I added some important tidbits, because I tend to do that. I tend to forget to say very important stuff, or I think of stuff later. I'm like, oh, I should have said this, and I'll add it into text. So I understand listening. I'm that way too. I like to listen while I'm doing stuff. So you may need to go back and watch it. And if you don't hear this part said in the video, it's probably because I didn't need to do that. All right, well, go ahead and share down below what is working for you, what has worked for you, what hasn't worked for you. Share your experiences. I know there's a lot of people that are vegan that are just doing very good on that diet. I know a lot of people that have gone vegan that it didn't work. It actually made them sick. Their teeth started falling out, and they started having a lot of other issues with their bones, their digestive health. I know people who've done keto that have been done really good off of it, and other people that have not. So anyway, share all that with us down below, because it's always good to hear other people's stories as we all try to seek and find what's going to make us feel best. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.